Hey, everybody, and welcome to the brand called you. So, I'm super excited about our guest today, Frank ter Horst, who's come all the way from the Netherlands to talk to us. Frank is the director and the founder of Gvidado, which is, well, he calls it a professional thinking partnership. In other words, what they used to call professional coaching and personal coaching, he's now transformed. Normally, I would never, ever even think about talking to a coach because I find most of them super mediocre. Frank is different. Frank has this incredible capacity to see beyond the obvious and to really help people get to the heart of what matters to them in a way that I found fascinating. And I wanted to hear his strategies. One of the reasons I thought it was important to talk to him today is because there's this new trend now in the workplace for personal branding. Even in companies that want to get out their corporate message, they're really anxious to help employees figure out who they are at heart, what individual unique components they're bringing to the workplace. And so I thought Frank was the perfect person to help us figure that out. A bit about our guest, though. One of the reasons I found it so interesting to talk to him is that he didn't start as a coach. He started as an interior designer and then had a whole fascinating professional life after that. He's done everything from run a bed and breakfast, he's been a hotelier, he's run a pop-up wine bar, and everything in between. And I think that's all led him to where he is today. So welcome, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well,
Such an honor.
I'm sure that your many lives prior to starting this consultancy informed your work. And one of the things I thought was interesting about your bio is you said even your rare missteps, like the unlisted luxury suites for members only, affected you. Tell me about your misstep, what it was, and how it sort of got you on the path to where you are today.
Oh, well, it's interesting that you picked that up. It's completely the opposite of how I normally work as a
Good,
thinking
good. We got to
partner
throw a
because
wrench into all this.
I always want to bring out the best of people. But I think every now and then you need to fail in order to learn and to grow and to look beyond. What we were trying to do with the Unlisted was to curate those special hideaways that nobody knows about and that you need to be a member of a club, which we call the Unlisted. And through being a member, you could book those places. A lot of energy, a lot of great vibes into it. We were really working on it. And then we noticed we can't make this work.
You were
Uh,
renting out private spaces to members?
we were trying to get that, and in the light of what was already going on with Airbnb, which is basically a lot of beautiful places, but also a lot of trash. The market was already overflown. I think the tech industry came up very quickly.
Yeah.
We would not be able to do that from the way we were looking into it. And then you need to say, okay, great idea. The idea itself might sound simple, but it's not that easy to get there.
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is when you've had a royal misstep,
Hmm.
is this a place to start the deconstruction process for, who you are at heart or what? In other words, I know I'm
Ah,
asking you a kind of crazy question, but rather than starting with your strengths, can you start with your weaknesses?
you can, but it's almost the opposite. If you start with your weaknesses, some people thrive in weaknesses because they are so thrilled to overcome those weaknesses that that is how they outperform themselves. I know for myself that whenever, for instance, when I was a ballroom dancer, I know that the best coaches brought out the things that I was really good at, and we're trying to capture that. bring that to the forefront, and then let me work on that and display that to the world. That's how I look at using your strengths and making them so beautiful that the world can't deny them. You know, you are amazing with words. That's what you do. I, on the other side, I am a visual thinker. Think in colors, I think in shapes, I see connections. I can easily make a drawing of that in my head, and through that, I find out what your story can be.
So let's go back to the visual part. So when I first met you, you were an interior designer.
Right.
And I'm super fascinated by how you take those skills and you apply it to the work you're doing now. Like I'm not a visual thinker at all. I have no capacity for that. I mean, how do you use that as a coach?
So when I'm in a conversation with the people I work with, I always start with listening. And you can listen to what people say. You can listen to what people are not saying. You
Mm.
can read between the lines. You can start to look for some patterns, but you really need to be present with the person in front of you in order to capture that moment of what people are trying to say to you.
What is the like where does the visual component come in?
So when I hear words or when people speak words, I see images.
Oh,
It's almost an immediate translation for me. It can be a visual of, some sort of, um, let's take an example. People try to understand what is important to them, what kind of pillars they want to use. I can see those as pillars of a house that we build a foundation on.
oh.
And then we build the walls and the roof and we make the rooms. I can also see another picture, and that's the picture of a beautiful garden with all those different plants and bushes. And some of them need a lot of because they're under-nurtured. Some you need to keep
Mm.
alone. Some you need to trim down and cut almost from the stem to let them blossom again. Those are ways of how I try to
Interesting.
connect the words to a visual image and then translate that. And
That's
I,
really
al-
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. And what I always do is I try to connect it back to the way people operate. What is their um, mode of working? You know, is it a professional sports player before? Do they have kids? Do they love to barbecue? I will always connect some elements of what they say in their stories and then use that and help them, almost relive that, visualize that.
It's interesting because I've never thought of that, but if you can kind of visualize it, you can act upon it in a much more powerful way than just an intellectual
Exactly.
idea. I love
Exactly.
that. Um, so, uh, yeah. So, what is yeah, go ahead.
How was that for you? Because you are so strong with words. How
Yeah.
do you make that connection?
Yeah. When I do story coaching, I think what I do is I mean, I think we're doing the same thing, but from a different perspective. You get emotionally charged by pictures. So like you can put somebody's hobbies or habits or keywords in like in the garden,
Hmm.
metaphorically speaking, right? And then you could put some other aspects of them in the bedroom or however you design it in your head. I think what I do is I tend to see words as I look for it's like You know when you're on the beach and you have the metal detector looking for coins when you're
Right.
on a beach? I think I look for what is the emotions behind the words, like a metal detector. And sometimes it isn't even the word that they're saying, but it's what how they're saying it. I'm constantly looking for what is emotionally charging these people or what isn't. Like, are they just saying words that are, a lot of times people will think they're telling me their story, and I'll say, I'm not buying it. Let's try it again. Let's go back again. But for me, it's always
Right.
in the sound of a word or the emotion behind a word or the emotion not behind a word.
Ah,
I don't have a visual image, but I have a gut visceral feeling of I look for emotion. I don't know if you're really getting at the same thing when you're working.
yeah. The emotion is super important, right? Um, And when you started to talk about the metal detector at the beach or in the sand, I saw myself on the beach. I saw the people
Right.
playing with the metal detector,
Right.
really looking for maybe some gold to dig that up and see what that is. And I could easily turn that into, okay, what are you digging up there? What is important to
Mm,
you? How does that look like?
mm.
Um, so it's probably the same process that we
Yeah, just
follow.
coming from a different place. What do
Exactly.
you find the biggest, what are people most resistant about? Like, I mean, first of all, I should ask, like, is your goal is to get them to know themselves, even if they
Yeah.
come to you? Okay. So what is the biggest resistance that you come across?
Change.
Hmm.
Yeah. The unknown and change often comes with not being in control. And I think most of the things, because I always tell ask people, what is the one question that keeps you awake at night? You know? And if we dissect that question back to core, often it's because they don't know, there's no clarity, and through there is no clarity, there is no control. What action do I need to take?
Well, but how do you have clarity with something you just don't know the answer to?
Exactly. So the clarity isn't there. And if there is no clarity, there is no control. So what you need to do is you need to start looking for the answers that matter. And in order to find the answers that matter, you need to ask the questions that matter.
Oh, I see. But that's the toughest thing of all.
It is, but that's why I do what I do. Because I'm able to draw out those questions from people that they can't see themselves. So we need to start to see the unseen.
Is it in some ways more satisfying than your other careers?
I think what I've learned about myself is that I always thought that I was reinventing myself,
Hmm.
and that's what people were always saying to me. And then I realized that I've always been doing sort of the same thing, but applying them in different areas and then building on them and growing them. And I think I need the different areas in order to build those skills because
Yeah.
I started in finance. If I was only in finance, I would have never built that strong visual component. It was all very facts and figures. And if I wouldn't have started working as a coach, as a thinking partner, I wouldn't be able to connect those words to the images and really, it really opened up my listening capabilities way further than I've ever done.
Well, so if we're talking about change, I mean, I'm going through a transition now and I'm super frightened. I'm thinking, why am I frightened? I guess because I feel like I don't have, like, I'm older now. And so
Mhm.
mistakes, like, I don't feel like making too many more mistakes. But I guess I'm just wondering how you appease the fears of people that are in transition or want to make change or. Or what is the fear?
Well, that I would need to drag to draw out of you.
Oh, so it's personal.
No.
Yeah.
To me, that's I always thought it might be something other people experience, but for you, it might be completely different.
Yeah.
When we really are capturing the essence of what is underneath,
Hmm.
then it becomes way easier of where to go. And in order to capture that, it's not always that you need to go back. You can also project that into the future
Mm.
by looking at, but what is it that you really want?
Yeah. Wow, what a novel question. I'm sure a lot of people don't even ask that. I also find in my coaching, the people that are most depressed are the ones that are clinging on to a story that isn't theirs anymore, an old
Mm,
story. And the ones that
yeah.
seem to do the best are the ones that are willing to rewrite their chapters. But I wonder why it's so hard why we're clinging to an old story. I mean, maybe the rewards are so great, or they think the rewards will be great if they cling on to an old story.
Can it be that people don't see the progress they're making themselves if they don't have the right people around them?
Yeah.
That they don't see how they have grown and how they have changed?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to your old high school friends and they haven't seen you, what will they remember from you?
It's funny you should say that because I went to a 20 or 30-year reunion of my high school. I don't remember how many years, but people remembered me as actually, I was so surprised that they seemed to have remembered me in the best way possible. Like you were always so theatrical and funny and like the parts of me I love the most that seem to have been there all along. I thought that I was such a different person, but actually I think I was always the same, but they kind of just reminded me of it.
So, do you think that you have lost elements
Yeah,
of that
I think
along the way?
right. I think that's what happens is you kind of lose who you are at heart. You sort of
Ah.
you kind of like push yourself into some sort of weird box and yeah. I think if anything it's about trying to recapture
Yeah.
recapture that. Yeah.
And what are you now scared about? Do you think that you are you scared that you're not capturing everything then
What am I scared about? You mean about in life or in
in
career or
transition?
what is the
In that
scary part about
transition.
transition? Well, every with every decision, it requires loss. And I think the first thing I'm scared about is loss. Like you
Mhm.
have to cut off to move forward, and that scares me.
What's the
Um,
worst thing that you can lose now at this moment?
Friendships, uh, I don't know. It's a good question. It's a very good question. I mean, you're not really losing yourself, right?
Oh. Is
Yeah.
that would that be the worst?
To lose yourself?
Yeah.
No, not really. I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. What do you find most of your what do you find with most of your clients their biggest fear is in transition? What are they most afraid of losing? And I know it's a general question, but if you can answer generally, it would be great.
I go back to being in control because the moment we transition to something that's into the future, how do I know that I will be able to do that?
Right.
So that takes a leap of faith. It takes
Yes.
motivation. It takes dedication. It takes grit. And only if you dare to take that step, then you might get there. So if I think back of so many of the people that I've guided, They come to me and they say, I want a different life. In the end, they don't want a different life. They want a different job because they're stuck. They want to get unstuck. It's not necessarily about the work they do. It's not necessarily about the friends they have. It's not necessarily about the relationship they have, but they feel they're stuck here and now and they can't get themselves to move past that point. And the moment that opens up, because, in COVID, I coached hundreds of people at the same time. And there was so much money and there was so much growth in companies suddenly because everybody was able to get promotions and
Ah,
unbelievable opportunities were there suddenly. Then after COVID, we had a downfall about that, and the coaching relationships completely changed. It changed almost from opportunities to fear. How do I get through that? How do I get past that?
you really have to tap into your own strength. I mean, your own bravery, but not an easy task, obviously. Also, I wonder if, optimism plays a role in that.
It helps tremendously.
You know
It
what
helps.
I'm curious about in the Netherlands, the cultural differences, like if you're coaching a Dutch person versus an American person, where in some ways, change is so much more dangerous in America because the security isn't there. I mean, do you have to look at some of the practical considerations too? And, culturally, is it quite different when you're working with an American?
I think even in the Netherlands, where people have so many securities, that doesn't really make a difference
Yeah.
because you're talking about something that people can't see yet. You
Mm.
talk about going to a place that people don't know what that means. That's always scary. It doesn't matter what the um in Dutch we have a great word, vangnet. So the I'm lost for the word, but basically you you have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
Um, but in the end, also in the US, you have that because the system, yes, you can be laid off today, but through that system, it's also easier to get a job tomorrow.
It's true. It's true. It's more
And that's
flexible.
different it's more flexible, it's much faster.
And the
Um,
capacity for reinvention is kind of American versus Dutch don't
yes,
really think you can start again. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was so surprised at a certain point to hear that if you're an entrepreneur in the States and you don't go bankrupt at least once, you're not successful.
It's true. And I
And
know
in another,
that
it's the other way around. If you go bankrupt, they say, oh, you can't run a business. So it's completely the opposite.
yeah. 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 It's so true. Fear. Yeah.
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 So if you look at, because you live both in the States and the
Yeah.
Netherlands, you
Yeah.
travel back and forth,
Yeah.
you see those both cultures. Where do you feel you belong?
This is the key question, and it could be neither of those countries, or it could be both, or it could be, I think I've always tortured myself for having one leg in each place, but maybe that's exactly what I need to make peace with. I don't know.
How come you don't feel you have two legs in both places?
I find that traveling between cultures takes a lot out of me emotionally because it's very, very hard to transcend one culture to another, and it comes in subtle, nuanced ways.
But
But
what's the culture inside of you?
it's a little bit of both, like you said. It's a little bit of both. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. That we'll have to.
Because I would almost say if that culture is inside of you and it's both, you wouldn't have to adapt. It's almost this
Yeah.
this quest between are you trying to fit in or do you belong, which is completely different.
And very complex. But I
Yes.
guess let me ask you just in closing because we I can't believe it's been 30 minutes already. But what are your plans? Do you have any grand plans for the future? Are you changing your coaching practice? Are you looking at new strategies? Are there things happening in the culture in the world that you want to start addressing? Concerns that people
Yes.
are coming to you with?
Yeah, I think so. In the past years, I've done a lot of online coaching worldwide. I went in one day from China all the way to the States and everything in between, and I've spoken to so many people with so many different cultures. Now it's time to really address the more problems that people feel like. What is it that you lie awake from at night? What makes you not sleep? Because sleep is so important.
Mm,
And often what happens is we put one question after another question after another question. But when we start with dissecting that, we often can take away the entire process of that and get people into a different pattern. So when we really understand the big problems and turn that into more self-awareness and then mitigate that and then building on your strengths, building on what you need to bring out in the world, bringing that into your personal brand, I think that's when the future becomes way easier and you don't have to be as fearful and you can just start moving there.
I love that. And a great place to end. Thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom, and I
Yes.
really wish you the best of luck in all of your
Thank
endeavors.
you. Thank
I'll
you
be
so much for
following you.
having me. It's, as always, such a pleasure. Always a joy.
I'll be following
Um,
you.
Same here.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.